yeah.
So any viewers that are investors from international, not only is tokenization really globalizing
Right.
fractional ownership of properties in the US, but now it actually opens it up for them to potentially move themselves and their families to the US.
Yes, this is a phenomenal development. This conversation is a phenomenal development for you and your clients, and it could be for me in
For
helping
you as
people.
well. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, tell our viewers, how would they get in touch with you? How would they find you? Welcome to Concrete Build Crypto Financing, where we explore the intersection of real estate and crypto financing. We invite leaders, experts, and both real estate and crypto investors on our show to gain knowledge into the revolutionary new field of tokenized real estate. First, here's a word from our sponsor. Dreaming of real estate income, but don't have thousands to invest? With Concrete Build CBOD, you can start earning from tokenized real estate for just pennies. Invest in commercial property with CBOD tokens backed by real world assets. No banks, no high fees, just real property, real profits. Your gateway to passive income is here. Invest now at concretebuild.org. Concrete Build, tokenizing properties, tokenizing wealth. And now to introduce my guest tonight. My guest tonight is Andy Semotiuk. And he is an expert voice in the field of immigration law. Andy of Pace Law Firm specializes in investor immigration to the US or to Canada. And we are delighted to have him here tonight. Please join me in welcoming Andy. How are you doing today, Andy?
Fantastic.
Wonderful. We are delighted to have you here as well. So I like to start off my show by asking all of our guests this question. Tell me, Andy, what do you see as the future of real estate, and how does crypto financing play a part in that future?
Sure, sure. Well, I gather the idea behind cryptocurrency and the way you're approaching it is that people who may not have a large sum of money, but enough to participate in the purchase of a property with other investors can do so through the crypto financing option that you're offering. In that respect, I think there may be some crossover that we can talk about between your field and the field I'm involved in, which is the investor immigration field, and in particular, the American programs that enable foreign investors to invest in real estate in the United States and thereby get immigration status in the United States.
Tell us more about that. Yeah.
So I work with investors who buy real estate in the United States. A common situation for me is an investor buys a hotel and needs a work visa to be able to not only own the hotel, but to run the hotel, to be a manager, for example, of the hotel that they invested in. Sometimes the investment may not be 100% of the value of the hotel. Now, in some instances, there may be a mortgage, for example, and they put a down payment down, and they buy a hotel in that way. In your case, my thought is there may be some investors who may not have enough money to pay for the whole investment, but may have enough money to put a down payment in respect to a purchase. Let's talk about a hotel as an example.
Okay.
So the kind of place where I could fit into your work would be, let's say there's some investors, let's say from Canada, because I'm here in Toronto, for example. Now, I'm a US immigration attorney, but I also practice Canadian immigration law, and I help Canadians, for example, to move to the US. Let's say they're buying a hotel.
Got it.
So the situation where crypto could be involved would be where the client that would be my client is looking for an investor visa to go to the US and work in the US. And if they invest sufficient funds to be a 50% owner of the hotel or property, whatever it might be, then that opens the door for me to get them an investor visa, a 5-year visa, where they can work in the hotel or whatever the project may be as a manager running the hotel because of their investment.
Okay, will this work also for commercial properties such as multifamily as well?
No, it has to be active business. So just simply buying a house, for example, would not work. If they were a property manager, it could work.
Okay.
It would have to be an active situation. So for example, you buy a triplex and you're a property manager, that wouldn't work.
Got it.
There's not enough of a business element to it.
Exactly.
But
So they
if
would
you
have to buy like 18 units or 24
yeah,
units and up.
there you go. There you go. But the key to my involvement and getting the visa is that the investor involved has to own at least 50% of the equity in the property.
That's wonderful. That's good to know. How easy is it to get these visas? Like how long does it normally take?
As far as ease is concerned, if you're talking about working with me and my law
Right.
firm, it's
Yeah.
fairly easy. We're doing this all the time, not with cryptocurrency all the time, but generally buying properties and especially say hotels, or for example, restaurants or convenience stores or whatever it might be.
Okay.
And even apartment projects where people are property managers, that works. So the process, I'll give you the process. So if anybody's interested, here's the process. A person, let's say you set something up where someone's going to be buying at least 50% of a property, maybe
Correct.
just 50%, but at least 50%.
At least 50.
And then you think, hey, you know what? There's this guy, Andy, who can get you a work visa for 5 years if you do. So you call me and I talk to the client and I say, well, here's the process. First, we agree to work together and for me to be your attorney. So we sign an agreement. Second, now, if need be, I can incorporate a company to own the property, or you may have the arrangement because of the crypto aspect where you've got fractional ownerships. So what I will need is to show that the person will have a fractional 50% ownership of the property. That's what I need to show, okay? And then I send them an intake form and a checklist of documents that we need. Intake form would ask questions like name, address, date of birth, etc. Checklist of documents would be birth certificate, passports for him or her, the ownership, the proof of ownership of the 50%, which would have to come from you on your side, and also background details about the person involved, resume or whatever it is. And I would prepare the application, which would go, in the case of Canada, to the US consulate in Toronto. And the person would, in about 3-4 months, be interviewed and be granted a 5-year visa to live and work in the United States with the whole family. The spouse gets an open work permit to work anywhere in the United States, doing anything from frying French fries at McDonald's to brain surgery, Sloan Kettering Hospital, whatever it is.
So spouse gets that. How about adult children?
No adult children. Adult children would not qualify, but children 21, less than 21, would qualify with an E2 visa to go to school and indeed go to university.
Gotcha.
And at the lower tuition rate, not the higher international student rate, but the lower local tuition rate, which can save like thousands of dollars.
Thousands.
Tuition.
Now, that's so interesting. What is the cost for this visa? And are there any countries that are barred from being able to use it?
Well, the cost depends on the situation, how many people and what, but I'm going to say roughly, let's just say generally, it's probably going to be around 10,000 US dollars total, all in.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's including your fees and
Yes, everything.
Okay.
Yeah, roughly. Okay. Depends, if it's a larger family, a little more.
Got it.
And
Got
but
it.
that's a general
So
guideline.
your average four to five person family would
Yeah,
include
it should be close to that number.
Okay.
And now, what did you ask otherwise?
Countries
What
that.
countries? Yeah.
Mhm.
Most of the Western countries like Europe, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, these kind of countries, the countries who are in the Commonwealth would probably have there are countries who do not have free trade agreements with the United States.
Gotcha.
Those countries would not qualify. So, for example, while Russia won't qualify, some of the Arabic countries won't
Mhm.
qualify. China doesn't qualify, but many countries do. Most of them, I would say, even do.
So most of the Americas would be fine.
Yeah, it depends on where in the Southern America, but some
Mhm.
of them do, yes. We don't know which one it is. You'd have to ask. I could tell you right away. There's a
Got it.
list I could provide if anybody needs it.
How about African countries?
African countries, yes. But again, it depends on the country. So, for example, Nigeria would not qualify, but South Africa would qualify. And then we have to skip around and see what country it is. They either have a investment agreement, like a free trade agreement with the United States, or they don't. If they do, then we can do it.
That is so interesting, Andy. This is a very interesting conversation.
Oh yeah.
So any viewers that are investors from international, not only is tokenization really globalizing
Right.
fractional ownership of properties in the US, but now it actually opens it up for them to potentially move themselves and their families to the US.
Yes, this is a phenomenal development. This conversation is a phenomenal development for you and your clients, and it could be for me in
For
helping
you as well. Exactly. Well, tell our viewers, how would they get in touch with you? How would they find you and your company?
So the company is called Pace Law Firm, Pace Law Firm. We're in Toronto. My name is Andy Semotiuk. Just ask for Andy. And the website is pacelawfirm.com. And you can email me at andy@myworkvisa.com. And I can provide any information anybody would be interested.
It sounds like a very seamless process
It
compared to
is.
the very convoluted process that is for so many other visas to
Yes.
come to the US.
I need to work with you and your people because you're setting up the investment. So it should come from your initiative to my office, and then
Okay.
I can help your clients get the immigration aspect of it. This fractional ownership aspect that you're trying to convince people of, this also is a real, honest, working way for people to immigrate to the United States. It's novel. I'm not sure the consulates are familiar with this.
Right.
So
This is the first time I've heard of it.
we're going to have to teach them.
Yes.
But you and we can do a lot of work together. This is going to be, it could be a really big deal for many, many people who want to immigrate to the United States. There are similar programs for Canada, but Canada is not quite in the same category. It's a little more complicated to come to Canada in that regard. An example might be, though, I don't know, do you do work in Canada? Do you sell properties or?
So we don't currently have any properties in Canada, but we're not really limiting ourselves geographically. Obviously, we're concentrating the most of our work here in the US. For sure.
Yeah. Well, if you had Americans who want to come to Canada and do something similar, this works exactly right for them. So there may be Americans in the United States who are not happy and want to leave the United States. Not everybody's happy. Some people are happy, others are not. And if they're looking for a way to come to Canada, this option would be available for such American citizens who want to come to Canada. Yeah.
So do you know if there are any quotas for this particular immigration visa?
There's no quota. It's just, do you qualify?
Do you
But
qualify?
the key is
Mhm.
you'd have to show you have at least 50% ownership, which
In-
restricts what you're doing a little bit. Let's say you don't have 50% ownership. Let's take a concrete example.
Mhm.
Let's say there's a hotel in the United States, or let's take it a real estate. It sounds like you do a lot of apartments and things
Yes.
like that, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Commercial property. Yes.
okay, so let's say commercial property. Let's say it's a large apartment complex, and there are investors buying, and there are going to be more than a few investors, and some of them are from Canada.
Mhm.
Maybe one does not own 50% of the property, but maybe there's 10 investors who together are all Canadians,
Mm.
and they are investing at least 50% of the overall ownership of the property. That
Okay.
would work to get someone, at least one or two of them, work visa for, it's called E2 work visa for 5 years, renewable in 5-year increments for as long as they have the investment. So
That's
it can be 5, 10, 15, 20,
Mhm.
25 years. They're living in the US.
That is very good to know. So they could pool their resources, but one
Yeah.
or two of them would be only would be eligible for the visa.
Yeah, because they'd have to be managers. See, here's the thing. To qualify, the property has to be, in this case, I'm just going to use this specific case, a Canadian-owned property. So that's why I say, let's say 10 investors from Canada and 15 from France
Mhm.
are investing in this apartment building. So the 10 who are investing from Canada make up 50% of the ownership of the apartment. In that case, that apartment qualifies for E2 immigration purposes. Now, none of them, if they don't own 50%, not one of them could qualify as an investor immigrant and get an E2 visa, but any one or a few of them may qualify to get a management visa, E2 5-year visa to manage the property.
Interesting.
Because they are a Canadian, they have invested, not a majority, but they're going to be managing a property that's a Canadian property in this case.
That is I love this conversation, Andy,
Yeah.
and you're obviously very, very knowledgeable of it. How many people have you helped in this?
Hundreds, probably thousands. I've
Wow.
had just a little background on me.
Sure.
I write for Forbes on immigration. I've been writing for Forbes for 10 years as a contributor. I've helped over 10,000 clients with various legal problems, US and Canada, over the course of my career.
Okay.
And my area of specialty is investor immigration.
This is, like I said, this is the first time I've actually heard of this particular visa.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Oh, it's,
some of our viewers are
believe me,
international, so they would love.
believe me, you and I have just uncovered something that will go crazy.
That's
You
no
and I,
secret.
in this conversation, this will be the first time, certainly that I've ever heard of it, and that you probably have heard of it, in terms of matching these two elements,
Together.
immigration but I need to underline that it has to be a commercial investment and it has
Yes.
to be active. So it has to be a commercial investment.
Yes, that's what we specialize in here.
Super,
We build this
super.
commercial real
Where
estate.
are you?
So I'm located outside of Atlanta.
Okay,
Yes.
that's perfect for me. There's a
Wonderful.
lot of Nigerians in Atlanta.
There
Yeah,
are.
we have a group here that works on Nigerian investors.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, Atlanta is really a melting pot now.
yes, it is. Yeah,
It really is. Well, this was a fascinating conversation, Andy. Thank you so much. Everyone, please be sure to go to pacelawfirm.com if you
yeah,
want to learn more about how to be an investor, to get your investor immigration visa with
right.
Andy. And we would be more than happy to partner with you to obtain some commercial properties to
Super.
be eligible for that. So again, if you want to learn more about concrete build and tokenization of properties, go to concretebuild.org. Tokenizing properties, tokenizing well.